Ethan Cole had always imagined a quiet life somewhere far away from loud cities and complicated people. For years, he had worked in different towns, moving from job to job, trying to build something stable. But somehow, life always pushed him back down. When his last business failed, he felt like the world had closed in on him. So he made a decision that even he found surprising. He bought an old abandoned farm in rural Arizona. It was not expensive, but it was far from everything. For him, that was perfect. He thought that maybe, just maybe, peace lived in lonely places. The land stretched wide around him, mostly dry earth, scattered bushes, and long silence. Local people gave him strange looks when he told them which farm he bought. Some said it was unlucky, others only stared and warned him that strange things happened there. Ethan didn't pay much attention. He believed in hard work, not stories. So he packed his tools, his clothes, and the few things he owned and moved into the small wooden house standing tiredly on the land. The first few days were peaceful. The house was dusty, the barn broken, and the fences leaning like old men. But Ethan saw potential. Every morning he walked around the property with a notebook, writing small plans: repair the roof, rebuild the barn door, mend the fences, clear the dry weeds. The silence was comforting, a kind of medicine he never knew he needed. But on the fourth night, something unusual happened. Ethan woke up because of a sound. Light steps, soft movement, something too quiet to be an animal, yet too heavy to be the wind. He sat up, listening. For a moment, only silence. He shook his head and lay back down. Probably just his imagination. The next night, the same thing happened. A faint rustle near the kitchen, a shadow moving past the window. When he walked outside with a lantern, nothing was there. Even the dirt paths looked untouched. That made him uneasy. Animals always left tracks. If it wasn't an animal, then what was it? The following morning, he noticed something even stranger. A loaf of bread he had bought from town was half gone. He knew he hadn't eaten it. He lived alone. He stood there in his small kitchen, staring at the bread, his mind turning. Someone was entering his home, or his storage area, without him knowing. But there were no broken doors, no signs of force, nothing missing except some food. He checked the house carefully, slowly, step by step. Every corner, every little space, everything seemed normal. Ethan kept thinking about the locals and their strange looks. Maybe they knew something he didn't. Maybe someone lived around here, someone who didn't want to be seen. Later that afternoon, he went outside to inspect the barn. As he walked through the dry soil, he saw faint footprints. They were small, not like the wide steps of a grown man, and not like the marks of a heavy boot. These prints were light, thin, almost delicate, and they were fresh. He crouched down and touched one of them, surprised by how small it was. He followed the trail, moving carefully. The footprints led behind the barn, then to the side, and finally toward the entrance. When he stopped at the barn door, he felt his heart beat a little faster. Something was inside. He gently pushed the door open. Dust floated into the air like soft smoke. The barn smelled of old wood, hay, and forgotten years. Broken tools lay on the ground, and a few beams leaned dangerously. For a moment, nothing moved. Then his eyes caught something, a small flicker of movement behind stacked hay at the corner. Ethan took a slow breath. He didn't want to scare whatever or whoever it was. He stepped closer, careful not to make loud sounds. And then, from behind the hay, a face appeared. Not an animal, a human. A young woman, maybe around 20, stared at him with wide, frightened eyes. Her hair was long, dark, and tangled. Her clothes were worn, too big for her, and covered in dust. She looked like she had not slept properly for days. Ethan froze, just as surprised as she was. He raised his hand slightly to show he wasn't a threat. "It's okay," he said softly. I'm not here to harm you." She didn't speak. Her breathing was fast, her shoulders tight, her fingers gripping the edge of the hay as if she was ready to run. Her eyes, sharp and alert, studied him carefully. She looked like someone used to danger, someone who didn't trust easily. After a moment, she spoke with a quiet, shaky voice. "Who are you?" "My name is Ethan," he replied. "I bought this farm." Her eyes widened even more. She stepped back, half hiding again. "This was empty before. You weren't supposed to come." Ethan understood something then. She had been living here before he arrived. Hiding here, surviving here. That meant she must have been in desperate trouble. He lowered his voice even more. "I didn't know someone was here," he said. "I thought the place was abandoned." She looked around nervously, as if expecting someone to appear. Ethan noticed her feet, bare, dusty, and bruised. She looked exhausted. "What's your name?" Ethan asked gently. She hesitated, then replied in a small voice, "Naya." Ethan nodded, taking in the fear in her expression. "Are you hurt? Do you need food or water?" Naya pressed her lips together, and for a moment she didn't answer. Then hunger defeated fear. She gave a small nod. Ethan went back to the house and returned with water and some food. He placed everything on the ground a few steps away from her so she wouldn't feel trapped. She moved slowly, carefully, like someone expecting danger at every turn. When she finally picked up the water and drank, it was as if her body was thanking her for the first time in days. For the next hour, Ethan stayed near the barn door while she ate in silence. He didn't question her, didn't pressure her. He simply stayed close enough so she knew she wasn't alone, and far enough so she didn't feel cornered. When she was finished, Naya wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. Her eyes were calmer, though still suspicious. Ethan took a gentle breath. "You can sleep inside the house tonight," he offered softly. "There's a spare room. You don't have to stay out here." Naya shook her head quickly. "No, I can't go inside. I'll stay here." Ethan didn't push. "Then at least let me bring you some blankets." She didn't answer, but her silence wasn't rejection. Ethan walked back to the house again and returned with a few blankets. He handed them to her with a small, kind smile. For a brief moment, she looked directly into his eyes, really looked. And in that moment, he saw something beneath her fear, strength, pride, and deep loneliness. The sun began to set, painting the sky orange and red. Ethan walked back to the house slowly, his mind full of questions. Who was she? Why was she hiding? What danger had pushed her to live like this? He didn't know, but he knew one thing. She needed help. Later that night, Ethan lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling. The wind outside moved softly through the dry grass. He wondered if Naya could sleep. He wondered if she was still afraid. Then he heard it. Light steps again, but this time closer to the house. He sat up, listening carefully. He didn't move, and after a while the steps faded away, but he knew this time it wasn't a stranger. It was her checking the area, making sure she was safe. He turned over and closed his eyes. Something told him his quiet life was about to change. Before he drifted off to sleep, he whispered to himself, "Whatever she's running from, I hope I can help." He didn't know that the girl hiding in his barn would soon change his entire future. He didn't know that helping her would lead to danger, decisions, and unexpected feelings. He didn't know that this lonely farm, bought in desperation, would become the center of a story he never imagined. But fate had already taken its place, and Naya, the frightened Apache girl hiding among the hay, had stepped into his life in a way no one else ever had. The morning after Ethan discovered Naya in the barn, the air felt strangely heavy. The sun rose slowly behind the hills, casting long shadows across the dry land. Ethan stepped out of his house with a cup of warm coffee in his hand. He tried to act normal, as if the farm wasn't hiding a frightened young woman who had appeared like a whisper from another world. But his thoughts kept circling around her. He wondered if she had slept, if she had eaten enough, and most of all, why she was hiding in the first place. He walked toward the barn with slow steps. He didn't want to startle her. When he opened the door, the place was quiet. For a moment, he thought she might have run away. But then he noticed the blankets neatly folded and placed on a bale of hay. Naya was sitting near them, knees pulled close to her chest, watching him with cautious eyes. "Good morning," Ethan said softly. She looked away as if unsure how to respond. He placed a small basket near her containing bread, dried fruit, and a little honey. She didn't move toward it at first, waiting as if she needed permission. "You can eat," he encouraged gently. "I brought it for you." This time she nodded and reached for the basket, her hands trembling slightly. Ethan stood near the door, giving her space. He had 100 questions in his mind, but he knew asking too fast might push her away. So he waited patiently. After a few minutes, when she was halfway through the bread, Naya finally spoke in a quiet voice. "You shouldn't have bought this farm." Ethan blinked, surprised by her words. "Why do you say that?" She hesitated. Her fingers tightened around the bread. She looked like someone carrying a heavy weight on her shoulders. When she finally spoke, her voice was filled with controlled fear. "People came here looking for me, before you came." This confirmed what Ethan had suspected. But hearing it from her made the situation feel real and dangerous. "Who are these people?" he asked gently. Naya swallowed hard. "Men from the town. They say the land my family owned isn't mine. They want it for themselves. After my parents died, they came to take everything. I ran before they could grab me too." Her words were simple, but the meaning was deep. Ethan felt a tightening in his chest. She had not only lost her parents, she had lost her home, her safety, and her peace. He understood why she had been hiding, why she trusted no one. "How long have you been staying here?" he asked softly. "A few months," she whispered. "When the farm was empty, it was safe. I ate little, only when I had to. I stayed quiet. I thought no one would come." Ethan looked around the barn. He imagined her alone, sleeping on cold hay, listening for danger every night, trying to survive with barely anything. It made him feel something he couldn't describe, something between sadness and determination. "You don't have to hide anymore," he said in a calm voice. Naya shook her head sharply. "I can't leave. If I go, they will find me, and they will take the land that belongs to my family." Ethan understood. Land wasn't just a place. It was history, roots, identity. For her, losing it would mean losing the last piece of her parents. For the rest of the morning, Naya helped him around the barn. She repaired a small wooden box without him asking. She tied loose ropes neatly. She cleaned old tools as if she had worked with them her whole life. Ethan watched quietly. Even though she was young, she handled everything with steady hands and a focused mind. She reminded him of someone who had grown up with responsibility far too early. As the day passed, he tried to make her feel more comfortable. He asked simple questions, nothing personal, just to help her relax. "Do you know how to fix fences?" She nodded. "My father taught me everything." "What about animals? I'm planning to get a few goats soon." She gave a small smile, the first he had seen. "Goats like company. If you get only one, it will cry all day." Ethan laughed softly. "Then I guess I'll need at least two." Her smile faded quickly, but the moment stayed with Ethan. She wasn't just scared. She was isolated, carrying pain quietly, living on survival mode. He realized she didn't know how to accept kindness anymore. In the afternoon, as Ethan worked on the porch, he saw Naya standing near the barn door, watching the road with sharp eyes. She seemed tense, as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. He walked toward her slowly. "Is something wrong?" he asked. She didn't take her eyes off the road. "They might come today?" Ethan felt a chill run through him. She wasn't speaking out of fear, she was speaking out of experience. Around mid-evening, while Ethan was fixing a loose board on the fence, a cloud of dust rose from the road. A wagon approached, pulled by 2 horses. Ethan's heartbeat quickened. Naya stepped backward into the barn shadows, her expression frozen with fear. A moment later, the wagon stopped at the entrance of Ethan's land. 3 men stepped down. They were rough-looking, with dusty clothes and unfriendly faces. Their eyes scanned the property. "You the new owner?" one of them asked loudly. Ethan wiped his hands on his shirt and walked toward them calmly. "Yes." "Ethan Cole." The men exchanged glances. One stepped forward. "We're looking for someone. A young Apache girl. She ran away after causing trouble." Ethan felt anger rise inside him, but he kept his expression steady. "Haven't seen anyone," he replied firmly. The man narrowed his eyes. "You sure? Folks say she's been hiding around this land." Ethan stood straight, his voice steady. "I live alone. If there was anyone here, I would know." For a moment, no one spoke. Naya watched from inside the barn, holding her breath. The men scanned the area again, suspicious but unsure. Finally, they climbed back on their wagon. "If you see her," the man said, pointing a finger, "you best tell us. She's trouble." Ethan nodded but didn't say a word. The wagon turned and headed back down the road. Only when it disappeared behind the hills did Ethan let out a breath. He walked back to the barn. Naya was standing near the door, shaking slightly. She looked at him with disbelief, as if she couldn't understand why he had helped her. "You lied for me," she whispered. "Yes," Ethan said simply, "because you're not trouble. You're just someone who needs a chance." She blinked rapidly, her eyes shining with emotion she tried to hide. "They could have hurt you." "But they didn't," he said softly, "and I won't let them hurt you either." For a long moment, she said nothing. Finally, she whispered, "Thank you." That night, Ethan offered her warm soup inside the house. She stood at the doorway, unsure if she should step in. He didn't push her. "You can sit wherever you want," he said gently. She finally entered, slowly, looking around as if the house might crumble at any moment. When she tasted the soup, she closed her eyes for a second. It was the first warm meal she had eaten in a long time. As they ate in silence, Ethan saw something change in her. She wasn't just scared anymore, she was starting to trust him, even if only a little. And trust, for someone like her, must have felt like walking on thin ice. After dinner, she went back to the barn to sleep, insisting she felt safer there. Ethan didn't argue. Safety meant different things to different people. Before she closed the barn door, she looked at him for a long moment. Her voice was soft but certain. "You're the first person in a long time who didn't turn away from me." Ethan didn't know how to respond at first. Finally, he said, "You're not alone anymore, not while you're here." She nodded slowly. Then she disappeared into the barn. Ethan walked back to his house with a strange feeling in his chest. He had come to this farm seeking a quiet life. But now there was someone else at the center of it. Someone who needed protection. Someone with a story that had already pulled him into a world he didn't expect. The night was calm, but Ethan's thoughts were not. He knew the men would return. He knew Naya's past would not let her go easily, and he knew his life had already changed the moment he met her. He just didn't know how much. Ethan woke early the next morning, but something felt different. The farm was quiet, but not the peaceful quiet he had grown used to. It was the kind of silence that hinted something heavy was waiting to be spoken. When he stepped outside, he saw Naya already awake, sitting near the barn with her knees pulled close and her hands wrapped around her legs as if she was trying to protect herself from thoughts that scared her. She seemed lost in her mind, staring at the rising sun without blinking. Ethan walked toward her slowly so he wouldn't startle her, but she sensed him before he reached her. She stood instantly, wiping dust from her clothes, trying to look stronger than she felt. "You don't have to get up so early if you're tired," he said softly. "I couldn't sleep," she answered. Ethan understood why. Yesterday had been tense. The men searching for her had come too close for comfort, too close for safety, and too close to whatever future she feared. She had lived with danger for so long that peace probably felt strange to her. He decided not to question her yet. Instead, he walked with her to the shed, where he had left tools for repairing the fence. He picked up a hammer, and she followed him, quietly taking a coil of wire without being asked. She always helped. It was almost her way of thanking him, though she rarely said the words. As they worked, Naya kept glancing toward the road, her eyes sharp and restless. Ethan saw it and paused. "They won't come back so soon," he assured her. "They always come back," she whispered, almost to herself. He didn't know how to answer that. Instead, he continued working on the fence while she held the wooden posts steady. The morning passed slowly, filled with small tasks, small silences, and small thoughts neither of them wanted to share yet. By midday, the sun grew harsh, and Ethan suggested resting in the shade. Naya sat with him beneath a large mesquite tree, though she stayed a little distance away, still unsure how close she was allowed to be. Ethan offered her water, and she took it with a small nod. After drinking, she looked at him silently for a moment. Then she spoke in a low voice. "Why are you helping me so much?" Ethan set the water bottle aside. "Because you needed help. Anyone would have done the same." She shook her head quickly. "No. People don't help us unless they want something in return. My family learned that the hard way." Her voice wasn't angry. It was tired, like she had carried that truth for too long. Ethan thought for a moment. "I don't want anything from you, Naya. Not your land, not your trust. I just don't think you deserve to live in fear." Her eyes softened for the first time that day. She looked away, blinking slowly, as though the words touched a place inside her she had locked away. In the late afternoon, Ethan decided to check the barn roof, which had been damaged for years. Naya insisted on helping. She climbed the ladder quickly, moving with the confidence of someone who had learned survival through necessity. Ethan held the ladder steady and warned her to be careful, but she only gave a small smile, as if fear of falling was nothing compared to the dangers she had already faced. While fixing the roof, they talked more. Small stories, simple memories, nothing too deep. Ethan told her about his life before the farm, how everything he tried somehow ended badly, and how he thought coming here would give him a fresh start. Naya listened quietly, sometimes nodding, sometimes asking tiny questions. When he finished talking, she spoke in a soft voice. "You're not unlucky. You're just alone." Ethan chuckled gently. "A lot of people are alone. But not everyone knows how to live with it," she added. Her words were honest and strangely comforting. She understood loneliness because she had lived deeper versions of it. As evening arrived, they prepared a simple dinner. Naya helped cut vegetables while Ethan cooked over the small stove. She moved quickly, skillfully, like someone used to doing chores since childhood. At one point, she dropped a spoon and flinched as if expecting someone to scold her. Ethan noticed. "It's just a spoon," he said with a small smile. "You don't have to be afraid here." She nodded, though the old habits were hard to break. During dinner, a gentle quiet wrapped around them. Ethan watched her eat, noticing how she still savored warm food like it was something rare and precious. When she finished, she looked at him with a seriousness he had never seen before. "You should send me away," she said. Ethan felt a jolt. Why would I do that? Because those men will return, she said firmly. They will cause trouble for you. If they find me here, it won't be safe for either of us. He leaned back in his chair. I'm not sending you anywhere. This place is safer for you than being on the road. She shook her head. No place is safe for me anymore. Ethan thought for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Then stay here. At least here you're not alone. Her eyes lowered, her fingers tightening around the edge of her blanket. You don't understand. If they take my land, I lose everything. But if they take me, I lose even more. Then we'll protect it, Ethan said without hesitation. Naya looked up sharply. You can't. They have papers. They have power. They have ways of making things look legal even when they're not. Ethan stayed silent. He didn't know the details, but he knew she was telling the truth. People like those men always found ways to justify their actions. It was then that she stood slowly, walked to him, and looked into his eyes with a seriousness that startled him. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. You must marry me. Ethan froze. Naya didn't look away. Her eyes shone with fear, but also with determination. If you marry me, the land will not be taken. They cannot take it from a married woman. The law protects a wife more than a girl alone. Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came out. He felt the world tilt around him. He hadn't expected this, not even as a possibility. She took a small step closer. I know it is sudden. I know you don't know me well, but I have no other way. If I stay unmarried, they will claim I cannot keep the land. If I marry someone from them, they will own everything. But if I marry you, I will be safe. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He had helped her because she needed it, not because he expected anything like this. Marriage was not a small decision. It was a responsibility, a bond, a promise that changed lives. Naya, this is serious, he whispered. I know, she replied, but my life depends on it. Her voice cracked on the last word. She had held her emotions in for days, maybe months, maybe years. But now, standing before him, she let the fear slip through the cracks. I don't want to be owned by them, she said softly. I don't want to lose my parents' land. And I don't want to keep running forever. Her eyes searched his face, looking for an answer, a hope, or even a refusal. Anything that would give her certainty. Ethan swallowed hard. He felt protective instincts rising inside him. She was young, scared, and carrying burdens no one should face alone. But marriage was a different world. He was torn between logic and the sudden pull in his heart that wanted to keep her safe. He didn't answer immediately. He looked at her, really looked. Her tired eyes, her strong posture, her quiet courage, her trembling hands, her desperate hope. Everything about her showed how much she had endured. Finally, she took a step back, misreading his silence. I understand, she said quietly. It is too much to ask. She turned away slowly, walking toward the barn with a heaviness that broke his heart. Ethan watched her go, unable to speak, but deep inside him, something was shifting, something he didn't fully understand yet. He whispered to himself, she asked me because she trusts me, and that means something. He knew he had to think, to breathe, to understand the weight of her words. But he also knew one thing for certain. This wasn't the end of the conversation. It was only the beginning of a decision that would change both their lives forever. Ethan did not sleep that night. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind move across the dry land. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Naya standing in front of him, her voice trembling as she said the words that changed everything. You must marry me. He kept replaying the moment, trying to understand what to feel. Shock, responsibility, fear, confusion. Everything mixed inside him. But underneath all of that was something else. Something quiet but powerful. A pull toward her. A desire to protect her. A feeling he hadn't allowed himself to acknowledge until now. Just before dawn, he stood up, put on his boots, and walked outside. The sky was a pale blue, still waking up. He walked toward the barn, unsure of what he would say, unsure of how she would react. But he knew one thing. He couldn't ignore her request. Not after everything she had trusted him with. When he opened the barn door, he found Naya awake. She hadn't slept either. She sat near the hay, staring at the floor as if waiting for fate to decide her future. When she heard his footsteps, she lifted her head slowly. Her eyes looked tired, but they still held the strong spirit he had seen since the first day. "You're up early," Ethan said softly. "I didn't sleep," she whispered. He nodded. "Neither did I." An awkward silence filled the space. Naya looked down again, as if preparing herself for a rejection she didn't want to face but expected anyway. Ethan took a small step closer. "Naya," he said gently, "what you asked, it is not a small thing." "I know," she replied quickly, "and I know it is unfair to put this on you." "It's not unfair," he said. "You asked because you needed hope." She hugged her arms around herself. "I asked because I have no choice. If there was any other way—" He stopped her by raising his hand lightly. "Listen to me." She looked up, her eyes unsure, afraid of what his next words might be. "I'm not refusing you," Ethan said slowly. "I just needed time to understand what it means." Naya blinked, surprised. Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. "I know you're trying to protect your land," he continued. "I know you're trying to protect your life, and I know the danger isn't going to disappear, but I also know this." He took one more step toward her, his voice steady. "I don't want anything bad to happen to you, and I don't want to wake up one day and find you gone because someone forced you away." Her breath caught. Ethan looked into her eyes. "So if marriage is what keeps you safe, then I will do it. Not because I feel trapped, but because I choose to." For a moment, Naya didn't move. She didn't breathe. It was as if her world had suddenly stopped. Then her eyes filled with tears. Not the kind that fall loudly, but the quiet kind that come from relief, gratitude, and long-held fear finally loosening its grip. You mean it?" she whispered. "Yes," Ethan replied softly. "I mean it." Her knees weakened and she had to place a hand on the hay to steady herself. She had expected him to refuse. She had prepared for it. But hope had surprised her. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You don't know what this means." Ethan smiled faintly. "We'll figure everything out together." By noon, they rode into town. People stared when they saw Ethan walking beside Naya, but he didn't care. He guided her gently, making sure she stayed close, as if shielding her from every judging eye. They went to the small office where simple marriages were registered. The clerk was an old man with thin glasses and a tired voice. Ethan explained their intention calmly, while Naya stood quietly beside him, twisting her fingers nervously. The process was simple. A few signatures, a few questions, no fancy ceremony, no big celebration, just two people choosing to stand together because life had pushed them into a place where they needed each other. When the old clerk stamped the final paper, he slid it across the counter. "You're married now," he said with a sigh. Naya stared at the document. Ethan noticed her hands trembling. He placed his hand over hers, not grabbing, not holding too tight, just steadying. She looked up at him, and in her eyes he saw something warm, something new. Something he didn't expect. Trust. They left town quietly and returned to the farm. The moment they arrived, Ethan sensed something wrong. Fresh footprints, tire marks, disturbed dust near the gate. His heart tightened. "They were here," Naya said, her voice trembling. Ethan clenched his jaw. "Then they'll know soon enough that the situation has changed." But the men didn't wait long. Later that afternoon, a wagon appeared again. Dust rose behind it like a warning cloud. Ethan stepped outside, Naya behind him, but far enough to stay protected. The men climbed down with angry faces. "We know she's here," one of them growled. "You lied to us." "She is my wife," Ethan said firmly. The men froze. "What?" one of them snapped. "You heard me," Ethan replied. "We married today, legally. She is no longer a runaway girl. She is a married woman, and her land cannot be taken." The men exchanged confused, frustrated glances. They weren't expecting this. Their plan had depended on her being alone, vulnerable, unprotected. Ethan being part of her life changed everything. One man stepped forward and pointed at him. "You made a mistake, farmer. This won't end well." Ethan didn't move. "Leave my land." The men hesitated, but the law now stood on Naya's side. They couldn't take her by force. They couldn't claim her land legally, and they knew Ethan wasn't afraid to stand against them. Finally, after a tense stare down, the men turned, climbed into their wagon, and rode off, their defeat written across their faces. When they disappeared over the hill, Naya let out a breath she had been holding for too long. Her knees weakened again. But this time Ethan was close enough to catch her. She didn't fall. He steadied her with both hands, holding her just long enough for her to stand on her own. "You're safe now," he said gently. "They can't touch you." Her eyes filled again, but this time the tears were not from fear. They came from relief and something deeper. Later, as the sun began to set, they sat together outside the house. The sky glowed with warm colors, orange, pink, gold, stretching across the horizon. "This doesn't feel real," Naya said softly. "It will soon," Ethan replied. They sat in silence for a long time, letting the calm settle over them. Naya looked at him, studying his face, trying to understand the kind of person who would stand against danger for someone he barely knew. "You changed my life today," she whispered. "And you changed mine the day you appeared in that barn," he said. She smiled, small, fragile, but real. It was the first true smile he had seen from her. Over the next days, their life began to shift naturally. They fixed the farm together. They cooked meals side by side. They talked more about her childhood, about his dreams, about things they had never shared with anyone. The marriage, which began as protection, slowly turned into companionship, then into comfort, then into something deeper that neither of them tried to name too quickly. Sometimes Naya would stand in the field, looking at the land that once felt like a burden, but now felt like home. Ethan would watch her from a distance, feeling something grow between them, not forced, not rushed, just honest. He had come to the farm to escape his past. She had come to the farm to escape danger. And together, they built something new, something strong, something real. One evening, as they sat outside watching the stars, Naya spoke in a quiet voice. "I'm not afraid anymore." Ethan looked at her gently. "Because the danger is gone?" She shook her head. "No, because I'm not alone." He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. They simply sat there, side by side, letting the peaceful night settle around them, knowing that somehow, against all odds, they had found the one thing neither had expected: a home, a partner, a future. And it all began with a frightened girl hiding in a barn, and a man who decided to stand by her when no one else would.